In this video, I will be talking about the IntelliJ IDEA. There will be two parts of it, and the first part will be about hotkeys and basic navigation and some useful shortcuts, also some useful plugins. The second part will be about debugging. The reason I'm making this video is because I often see people that they are, for example, I tell them to navigate this or that class, and they are starting to search from the package hierarchy, and it's quite slow. Or when I ask them to reproduce a bug or just solve a bug, they are unable to because they are lacking the proper debugging skills, or they can, but it takes more time than it actually should. So I thought about showcasing the knowledge I have and yeah, my best practices. So I'm using IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate Edition, but most of the stuff I'm showing is can be done in the Community Edition with one or two exceptions. So let's get started. The first thing I would recommend is that yeah, the JetBrains has really good user manuals or tutorials. So all the topics I mentioning, this will be available here as well in more detail. The second stuff I would mention is yeah, it has almost shortcuts for anything that you use on a daily basis, and it has a nice stuff like my productivity, which tracks how many times you use these shortcuts. I freshly installed this ID, so it's pretty empty right now, but this can give you a starting point where what you should even use or what you are missing. So yeah, we have all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we have a project open, and I mentioned that navigation. So how do I find something, or how do I search something? The easiest way is if I press Shift 2 times, then I have this search pop-up window, which is basically search everywhere. It means it's searching from the configs, searching from classes, flies, actions, so basically everywhere. So if we really don't know what we are looking for, this could be the starting point. So for example, I'm looking for the plugins. I want to enable some plugins, and I can just start typing that plugins. And yeah, it's fine. And it turns out it's in the settings, and here I am with the plugins. And if I want to find a class, then, for example, I know this is the Pet Clinic project from Spring Boot. It's on GitHub. I think it's pretty known. So, for example, I'm looking for the controllers in this project. So I can search for classes. I can do it via pressing the Ctrl N, or if I don't know the hotkeys, I can. It's the same video. It's just switch to classes. They just type in controller. This search field is pretty dynamic, so I can search with camel cases, like it will filter for camel case. So yeah, if I don't really know the full class name, or I just know the part of it, then it's still pretty usable, and you can find good suggestions just by typing a few characters. I also can search for files, which includes the Java files, but also includes the other files, like for example, if I want to open the POM.xml for adding a Maven dependency, I can do by yeah, searching from here and just open it, or just I can press the right hotkey and write what I need. With navigation, I rarely use this tab here, so everything you open, this can be viewed in the recent files. This is good because when you are trying to untangle a process flow or something like that, you often get lost, and you can just track back where you have been, in which files. Also, you can track back by, for example, I just start from the controller, I move into this repository, I move into this one, and I can just, I want to go back to the controller, then I can just press the Control Alt and the left arrow, and it's starting move back to the previous cursor position, but I can also move forward. So this is also really useful when you are just want to check in what's in the method, then you want to go back to the place where were you before. Another useful stuff is when you writing code and you also have to look into some methods in more deep. Then you just want to jump back where you were, where we edited the code last time. Then you can just press Ctrl Shift backspace, and this jumps back to the last edited location. This can be pressed multiple times as well. So what else? Let's see. Search. So for searching, we talked about that we can use how we can search for files and stuff like that, but we can search in files. So if we press Ctrl Shift F, then we search in the project for the given text. We can make this regex expression as well. So for example, if we don't even have the slightest idea where our entities are, then we can just search for the entity, and we know that all right, they are probably here in this package. We also can reduce the scope by selecting specific modules or filter for directories, or we can search in all places, which includes the dependencies. So this project, I downloaded the sources as well, so I can search in them as well. This can be useful if you are dealing with a bug which not originates from your code, and yeah, you have to look into the dependencies as well. You can search. You can press this search shortcut on the package level as well. So for example, I only want to search in the models, and I can press it here, and it automatically selects this spot. What else? We have replace. So we have a search in a single file by pressing Ctrl F. If we press Ctrl Shift F, we have the global search. This additional shift key is the case. This is the case in the most of these kind of operations. So, for example, replace is Ctrl R, and if I want to replace everywhere, then I press Ctrl Shift R. We can use one of the most common navigation is when we go into the declarations or go into the implementations. We can do that by holding Control and clicking. So this is the go to declarations, and Control is go to the implementations. Or we can press Alt F7, and by this we can open a search tab, which we can navigate by pressing Ctrl Alt up and down. This is useful when you have so many searches that you don't want to use this window that so it only had one usage, but somehow you should be able to do a pop-up here where you could see this window. Maybe I find it later. But yeah, when I use this search with the Alt F7, I can it has its grouping. So for example, when I have this one, you can search for it, and it categorizes like it's treated as a variable, or it's a return type, or an instance creation. This is also useful when I'm only looking for where this object is created. So knowing all these navigation shortcuts, let's just see how, for example, you really utilize this. So go to the application properties and just switch to another project. For example, I have this property, show SQL. So this is doing that when I call a query, it displays the actual API query. So I just want to know where it is used actually. This will be interesting later in the debugging session. So I just control click on it. I see that, all right, this is used in one of the libraries which we are using, and we are setting the show SQL here. And let's check where we're using it. We're using it in a vendor adapter and setting a property with it. So let's see where we are getting this property. We are having two implementation overrides for this, and by default Spring uses Hibernate, so this is what we are looking for. We are putting this into a property map, so I'm guessing that we are going to get this property by this key. So I'm just checking where we are using this key, and yeah, we are putting it here, so we are using it here. We have this show SQL, so we are passing for this, which goes into this class, and we are just passing it to here. We are not reusing the islog to std out, so basically this is not even used, or not in all the projects which we can see. So this should be used here in somewhere, and it is indeed used here. So in the end, this is where we really using that. And now I'm pressing the recent files, so I can just quickly jump back to the application properties. So this is where this true eventually will be taking effect. And yeah, by setting that true, this is the logic which will make the console log. So I guess that's about navigation in the code. Let's talk a bit about the version controlling. So if your project has a version control, then you have a version control tab here. So for example, I have Git, this Path Kinetic application, the Git version control. I think I changed only a few things. So I think in the newer IDEs, this is checked. This only makes that the locale changes are not appearing here, instead somewhere else. But I'm kind of used to this, but the functionality are the same. Also, just one more thing about the navigation, that by default this is not enabled, which is what it's doing. If you select a file, this side panel is always navigating to the selected file. I just like it to be enabled. So with the version, back to the version control, we have the selected branch here in the left bottom, right bottom side. We can change branches here, create branches, pretty basic stuff. We can check our history under the log. We can filter for users or just generate strings. This is useful if you are encountering a bug and you know that the bug relates to something, so you maybe can filter out which commit caused the bug. But if you are not, know the exact location or just the class or the method which the bug originates from, then you can check the history of a file by going into the file and show history, and it shows the entire history of the file, but this can be narrowed down. So for example, I'm only interested in when this method was modified, and I can use the git show history for method. I'm using this really often because most of the time you don't really need the whole history, just the one that you don't understand why this method is written this way, or what was changed last time that might cause a bug. So this is a reason why I think meaningful commit messages are really important, because I often not really reading documentation, but instead I'm reading the code and reading the commit messages. You can even search for selection, so you can show history for selections. I kind of use this rarely because when the code shift is in line numbers and stuff like that, it's not always accurate. But so these histories are really useful. What you can also do is I often see that people are afraid to change branches, or they commit rarely, or stuff like that. What you can do is, for example, one of your coworkers asks you to check out something on his branch and you don't want to commit, or you are in a half finished process, then you can just shelve all your changes and let me just pause and configure this Git quickly, because it's kind of fresh Windows install. One sec. So when you go to shelf changes, then we just shelve these, which means they are rollbacked from our current change list and put into the shelf, and these are staying here forever basically, and it's I think it's stored in your local computer, so it's nothing related to Git. It's more like a feature of the IntelliJ. So you shelve your changes, check out the other branch, check the stuff what you were asked, and when you are finished, you can just change back to your branch and unshelve the changes, and you are just where you left before without any hassle with the committing and with the file handling and stuff like that. If you even more afraid or just want some extra proof or just want to share a code with your colleague without pushing anything to the repository, you can create patches. So create patch from local changes, and it will create a patch file, which is a text file which contains information, and this patch file can be applied back to the project. So it's almost like applying or reverting a commit, but it's also nothing to do with the version controlling. Another interesting feature is, which I don't really see often used, is that you can modify your change list by creating new change lists. So I create a new change list like do at Zomit, and this is useful when you are working on an application, which in order to be able to run on your computer, then you probably need to change some ports and default configs and stuff like that. So you change those, you just move them to a different change list, and when you are committing your other relevant changes, you are not accidentally committing that change into the repository. I think it's really useful, because I saw several times that ports and stuff like that keep getting committed and changed in the config file, and it just creates noise in the version history. So yeah, that's about the version control. It also has all the, so you can do everything from here, like cherry picking, rebasing, stuff like that. I don't really want to go into those details, but come on. But yeah, it's really visual. So for people like me, I don't really like to use command lines. It's a nice to have all these features here as well. Another thing I wanted to mention is plugins. So I think one of the most useful plugin is grep console. I also use Maven Helper, which Maven Helper is basically just adding a few nice functionality, like you can create goals and you can run them in one go, save them, stuff like that. Also, you have this dependency analyzer, which is nice to filter out all the conflicting dependencies in your POM-XML. The grep console, why I think it's important, because when you are debugging, then you have lots of logs. So let me just check. Yeah, root level debug. So I'm getting a lot of logs, but I'm only interested in, let's say, which beans were conditionally inserted. So this is the section where we get information about when a bean is inserted into the Spring context or not, based on some conditions. And I can just search for a string, for example this one, and I'm just saying grep, and it will filter all these logs into a new log tab, and all that lines which contains this text will be displayed here. We also can apply highlights, so if you don't want to filter it out, instead you want to mark some UUIDs and some interesting words, then you can just make it really colorful, which helps to better analyze a wall of text log. Also can, yeah, this one can use regefs as well. You can, yeah, so it's basically a grep tool, which is, of course, you can do outside of the IDE as well, but I think it's just really comfortable to have this here. Also, this is live updating, so I can grab something and only those grabs will show here, so it's tailing the logs as well. So yeah, that's a really good plugin. So that's basically, let's talk a bit about the code completion, which is a good feature as well. So we learned how to navigate quickly, how to search quickly. Now we just have to code quickly. So this is also really well supported. So for example, when you are creating classes or anything, you have a code completion option. So for example, if I have this class and I can create a variable, or yeah, I can create a variable by typing the car equals car, boom. But also I can do that. I write just the new statement here. Then I press Alt Enter and press introduce variable, and yeah, this way it automatically finds out what's the type and just creates it. We have code completion by pressing Control Space. We have a type stricken code completion. So if I press Control Shift Space, then it's matching the type. So that's useful when you want to make sure that that you have the correct type. So for example, this repository save only accepts this track type. So if I press Ctrl C, space here, it gives lots of classes, but when I press Ctrl Shift Space, the only class in my code base which suits here is the track, so the IDE automatically inserts it here. We have these shortcuts, which probably you know that you can write shout, press tab, you can write for E. I'm not sure what's the name of these shortcuts, but a few of these it's worth to learn. I guess probably everyone using the shout most. You have the Ctrl-T, which surround with. This is useful when you want to, for example, wrap something into a try-catch block. You have all kinds of reformatting tools, refactoring tools, like just find it. So, for example, you have this method, which maybe originally should be interesting. Searching for a inline, so sure why. What's the difference if I just do this? I should be able to extract this with the Control-Alt-M, but in theory I should be able to inline method, here it is. So I should be able to revert these kinds of inline methoding. So yeah, when you write a big chunk of code, then you can just easily extract a group of logics into new methods. These tends to be forgotten because yeah, people are just lazy. But if you know the shortcuts, then yeah, probably it's very minimal effort, because these kinds of extractions are extremely safe, so they don't change anything how the code works. So if you need multiple input parameters, then it will get those right. If it has some conflicting stuff or something like that, then it gives a warning, stuff like that. Also, you have shortcuts for renaming. I guess it's pretty common. What else? Yeah, so we have all kinds of shortcuts for extracting variables or moving lines. We can press Ctrl-Shift down or down and up. It's also really useful just quickly ordering some stuff. When we have multiple parameters, we can use Ctrl-Alt-Shift and the arrows to swap the parameters or move the parameters in the parameter list. These are small things, but yeah, knowing these will just reduce the effort making these small changes, which makes the code much more readable. One feature in the Ultimate Edition, actually the only feature I was missing from the Community Edition is that it can search for duplicated codes. So for example, if I copy paste this and paste it here, then I go to Analyze and look for duplicates. I say, let's say the whole project, maybe that's too much, but yeah, for example, usually you are looking, yeah, you can look for duplicates in your whole project, and it found a duplicate. You saw that pop up, you can define how much complexity is needed to mark it as a duplicate. So for example, if your only 2 lines is duplicated, it will not gonna show it, but you can configure this. And yeah, this also can help to reduce it also can help to make your code cleaner. So yeah, this is an ultimate feature, which is really good. Then you have the analyze feature, analyze data flow feature. I recently really used this because yeah, I worked with microservices which don't really have deep nested classes and structures and stuff like that. But in older times, I worked with monolith applications, and for example, you are really deep in the code, and you just want to find out where this thing variable gets its value, or if it can be an enum or anything. So you can do that. Select the variable parameter and analyze, and go to data flow to here or from here. Obviously, to here is how we reach this point, and from here is where this variable goes on. So if I analyze the flow to here for project, then I have this nice window, and I can see that where this is called. So for example, I search for this string, and you can see that this originates from here. It's not so meaningful in this context, but when you have really deep structures, then this functionality where it shines. Also, it can filter out some stuff, like you get a null pointer exception or something like that. Then you can filter for certain values. So for example, you are only interested where this parameter is passed as null, and if it's inside your code within the static context, so you are not getting it from an outside source, then the IDE can find it. Also, the nice feature of this IDE, actually one of the most useful features, is that it has all kinds of hints, which usually marked with this yellow stuff. So it can be a lot of things, like a variable is not used, or a method is not used, or if I just let's say I put this if condition into the end of this if part, then it's I think it's always false. Also duplicate condition, and also it should it's interesting that it's not saying that you're probably gonna get a null pointer exception. So in theory it should also warn you about that. Oh, it's now. Just needed to save the project. So it's saying that it should be annotated as not null, and it's probably saying that because of this, that this will fail with a null pointer exception if you do this. So the general thumb rule is you should not have these yellow markings in your project, because if you have many of them, it can hide some actually useful stuff like this. Because we'll just open the pet clinic, and yeah, this one a few warnings as well, but these are not so crucial, because yeah, linked past the plain text, you using the return, but you are not really giving any value to it. So, but this all can be fixed by pressing Alt Enter, and it will give a recommendation what you should actually do, like passing it as a link, or remove the tag, or just give some actual value to it. So yeah, it's worth to fix these before you are committing anything. So yeah, for starting, I would say these are the features that I use daily, and the things I look for. So yeah, this is the first part of the video, and the second part will be about debugging.